Ah, yes, the original Simpsons. First we have Lisa Simpson, that's good, and then Matt Simpson, which is a little bit stranger. We have Marge, who is a rabbit, and don't worry, we'll get back to that. And of course, finally, Krusty the Clown. Oh, and Maggie. Maggie Simpson is here too. You see, I, like you, innocent but filled with bad intentions, had never thought much about, well, this.
Yeah.
That's weird, right?
I am confused.
Yeah, well, it's not just weird, it's interesting. Let me take you way back. Before what might be the Simpsons Renaissance, before Zombie Simpsons, pre-Golden Age, before the Tracy Ullman Show, back when they were still trying to really feel out what this show was and had a lot of weird concepts being thrown around. One of them being Homer was Krusty the Clown. One concept initially saw Krusty being revealed as Homer's secret identity, but you know what? Let's leave the rest of that quote for now. It'll be important later. So, Homer and Krusty are designed to have the same voice actor and the same body. And while the idea for the plotline is dropped, these design elements are kept. Design elements like their identical body, or Krusty having Homer's beard thing. But that's extra weird, because that beard thing is specifically reserved for Homer, characters we are meant to identify as Homer, and his family members, never appearing on anyone else in all of Springfield, besides Krusty the Clown. For a reason you now know, but lack the critical context as to why it was done in the first place, and why the plotline was dropped. You know, this should actually be pretty familiar to you, because you've seen this done before. Characters designed with a plot element in mind, the plot line being dropped, but the design element remaining. Where have you seen it? It's the reason for Marge's hair. Yeah, she don't just do her hair like that so she can interfere with telephone poles. Nah, there's actually a reason. You see, Marge was originally designed to be a rabbit. This being a reference to Matt Groening's previous work on Life in Hell. Marge's hairstyle was actually intended to hide rabbit ears, to be revealed in the last Season 1 episode. But in the end, it was chosen that the rabbit ears were totally ridiculous, even for The Simpsons. Yeah, like a totally ridiculous plot like Homer being secretly a clown. But what was the point of that plot? And why did they cut it? Well, the answer, as it so often is Bart Simpson. Ah, you gotta understand, man, it was a different time. It was the 80s!
This was the 80s, man. There were no helmets. It was a wild place.
It was a time of hacky sacks, waterbeds, racism! It was really bad.
And there's the racism. Knew that was coming.
The script for The Empire Strikes Back still had Yoda named Buffy, Christian Bale was selling Pac-Man cereal, and chicken nuggets had been invented 6 years earlier. It was basically the Dark Ages.
Nugget is a boneless chunk of tender tasted chicken.
And Bart was the protagonist of The Simpsons. Shout out to this essay, and yeah, that's right, you're getting a shout out from someone with 400 subscribers. Basically like a Mr. Beast sponsor. 400 subscribers? I know you guys could help with that. The satirical concept I was going for at the time was that The Simpsons was about a kid who had no respect for his father, but worshipped a clown who looked exactly like his father, a theme which became less important as the show developed. See also Bart loves Radioactive Man, introduced in episode 2, while Homer is a man who works at a nuclear power plant, as introduced in episode 3, of Radioactive Man. Ha, very subtle. This might sound shocking if you, like me, didn't know about the early Simpsons on account of having contracted a terminal case of having not been born yet. I was born during season 9, just to really make some of the viewers feel old. But it's true, Bart is the protagonist. In the first 48 episodes, Bart is the only Simpson to appear in every single episode because they were almost all about him. He was the face of Butterfingers. Bart was huge. And you can see a lot of this in the first few seasons of the series, where Bart is much more in focus. Later, the show would become much more of a true ensemble, with Homer being the closest thing to a main character. And yeah, it checks out that later Homer would be the protagonist and not OG Homer, because OG Homer was really mean and way less fun. So, Bart is the lead. A kid who has no respect for his father, but worships a clown who looks exactly like his father. And the plan is to have Homer's secret identity be revealed, either as a climax to Bart's proto-character arc, or as a starting point for conflict. Yeah, early Simpsons had character arcs. Ain't that wild? Shit was planned to change. It was the 80s, before the stasis trademark fell on Springfield. But if this was a plan, why drop it? Well, that's where the other half of that quote comes into play. One concept initially saw Krusty being revealed as Homer's secret identity, but the idea was dropped for being too complex and because the writers were too busy developing the series. They didn't like the idea! Somewhat of an anticlimax, I know. Kinda like having Krusty secretly being a Homer. But let's turn back the clock for a second and see what The Simpsons would have been like if they'd gone through with Homer the Clown. And you'll see quickly, they were right. This gets very complicated very quickly. Homer is revealed to be Krusty, permanently changing Bart and Homer's relationship, either removing Bart's respect for Krusty the Clown or making him respect his dad a whole lot more. Likely a little bit of both. With the reveal complete, we now have to remove every Krusty episode from the series, or rewrite them all to be about Homer. With Abe already in the picture, we'd likely have to cut Krusty's dad from the show entirely. I mean, that, or write him in as like Abe's gay lover, which I'm not opposed to at all. Remember, we're talking about season 1 here, so this is well before Homer's mother was introduced into the series. If they wanted to keep some of Krusty's plotline regarding his parents, we could gender bend his dad and have that be Homer's mother in this timeline, which means we'll have to cut out OG Homer's mum, or combine the characters into one. Having Homer and Krusty be the same character also has some really weird effects on Sideshow Bob. This gives the original Sideshow Bob plotline a really weird feel, because now he's not framing Krusty the Clown, but framing Bart's father, making the entire thing a lot more personal and a lot more confusing. However, the biggest change of merging Homer and Krusty into one character is now we will have to either remove every story about the family's money woes, or make Krusty unsuccessful. Doing this, we'd be removing Krusty Land, Camp Krusty, Krusty Burger, and a lot of Springfield mainstays, as you can't really have Krusty be both an extremely successful clown and a poor family man. Alright, Homer was considered poor back in the day. I know nowadays we wouldn't say that, with Homer being a one-income household able to support a 2-story house, with no loan, a car, 3 kids, a stay-at-home wife. Man, Homer's living it up. And finally, we would either be cutting Homer as a clown and having him go back to the power plant, or cutting his job at the power plant and having him become a full-time Krusty, as it seems improbable that he'd be a clown on the side? Ah, no man, I'm not your mum. Go clown on the side if you like. Just feels like giving him such a weird side job really removes his everyman kind of feel that the Simpsons were meant to have originally. Frankly, the weirdest change here is if Homer decides to stay on and be a full-time clown, this means Sideshow Mel might end up as his best workmate, taking the place of Lenny and Carl. Ultimately, I think we can all agree that the choice not to reveal Homer as Krusty the Clown was a good one, as to do so would potentially mean having him become a full-time Krusty and robbing us of all the beautiful Mr. Burns plotlines, which are the best part of The Simpsons. Huh, that was weirdly Mr. Smithers of me to say. Ultimately, the reveal that Homer was Krusty the Clown is an unsatisfying one, robbing us mostly of potential while giving us very little in return, serving as a pretty major anticlimax, much like a video you don't know how to end.